Good morning, everyone. All right, so just to give you some context, this is me 14 years ago when I moved to Detroit, and that was my home. And so, a lot of work to do. That's the block a few years back. It's fortunately even in better shape now. Started a barbecue restaurant because it was the only thing I knew how to do, and I had to make money to do all the crazy stuff I wanted to do. I didn't even know what a foundation was at that point. I just knew my films were terrible and my music was really bad, and no one would pay for it. And I could bartend. I was even a bouncer, believe it or not. I was like the smallest, tiniest bouncer, but I just read books so no one would get in a fight because there was this weird guy in the corner reading books. And so the barbecue restaurant, really kind of started paying for a lot of crazy things. And I got to kind of lead those crazy things because I'm also, even though I have a lot of experience in the restaurant industry, I'm a terrible manager. And so I got fired by myself and my partners and started working in the community and doing things like this. This is Roosevelt Park in front of our abandoned train station. Many people know it, Michigan Central Station. We saw it as a major potential for our community. We wanted people to get out, gather, communicate. And so this was one of the small projects that we did, which we thought was small on paper, but then we actually started doing it. It took 2 months, which was a lot to take off, but luckily my mom was semi-retired, and so her and I were out there, a lot of friends. If you see, this is how we do it in Detroit. First of all, we didn't pull a permit on this. The head of the rec department at the time, she's a terrible person, I apologize. The head of the general service was awesome, and so he just said, just work, don't tell her about it, just work behind her. And so, see that, my friend gave us 2 of these. That's my little Bobcat over there, to give you this idea of scale, but this thing was amazing. It's a front-end loader. We didn't know how to drive it, and so he just dropped it off and gave me a 5-minute tutorial, and then when I kept getting it stuck, he gave me another one to pull it out, and then I had to teach my friends how to drive it, so... but eventually, we made this great landscape with a lot of people in our community. Started throwing kind of dinners in abandoned buildings to try to get people again to communicate and start having more honest conversations about our community and about the potential that we have, instead of listening to these kind of negative narratives about, oh, Detroit is abandoned, terrible, bankrupt, blah, blah, blah. And then also started helping other small businesses and really heavy lift stuff, building out coffee shops and recording studios and creperies. Like this dude, the creperie guy, he asked me how to build a restaurant. I mean, this dude is a black Jewish French guy who moved to Detroit from Brazil. So I was like, oh, I'll do anything to be your friend. You're the coolest guy in the world. And so I went over to his place, and it was all built. He just didn't know how to do it legally, so we did his architectural drawings and pulled his permits for him, and the only thing he didn't have finished was the tables, so we built him some reclaimed tables. And what we learned pretty quickly after doing all these kind of really heavy lifts is they didn't need me, they needed the resources that I have. Detroiters, they would save themselves if they were as fortunate as I was. So we started PonyRide. I bought this building for $100,000. It's 30,000 square feet, just to do exactly that. Open up the doors and not tell people who they are or what to do, but just let them be creative. Give them access to specifically time and space. It was, this is part of the dance crew helping set up. They tore out, there's great videos on our website, them dancing literally while they're tearing out walls and drop ceilings. And then we bought old floors from torn down Detroit home, and they actually learned how to install the floors worked together with a boat maker to rebuild the dance floor. We bring the outside community in as well, so it's not just about our tenants. We do have about 40 tenants there currently, but then we have a Makers Market, which our annual Makers Market is actually Friday this week. So we have about 70 plus vendors. It started with 500 people, then 1,000, then 2,000. We expect to get about 5,000 this year in our 5th year of it. And so in our tenants, because they are in this kind of safe, supportive community, they could be, like many folks and say, we don't want outside tenants, we want to sell more stuff, but instead they bring in another 70 entrepreneurs to be able to sell their goods and have access. We have an educational program that's a lot of fun, and this is what George and Kresge is supporting. Our tenants, since they get half off of rent, they have to teach 3 hours in our community of what they're passionate about. Sometimes it's their specific skills of what they're working on, sometimes it's other things. So you can see Andrew as an example. He's one of our tenants. He's teaching my high school students here about concrete work. And then, metal smithing, woodworking, they do everything. They fly drones, they build shipping container projects, they build websites, they help you with your legal docs. It's been a blast. It's been fun, again, to think about, for us, this diversity kind of conversation and opening up innovation to all people. It's about everything. It's of course race, it's of course gender, it's of course age, it's also skill sets. So we have all these wonderful people kind of coming in and learning about each other. So sometimes it's just as important for a lawyer to be interacting with a metalsmith, to be interacting with a life coach, with a seamstress, and all these sorts of things. And the one thing that we really learned is in this idea of like turning over power to create a better community. We've done this with our youth. These are all high school students. I do have college students that take these courses as well. Boy, they're beyond capable. They're actually better at this stuff than we are. I mean, the way they pick up the Adobe suite is embarrassing. It's intuitive to them, and by the end of the semester, they're teaching us stuff. So I really think it's an important lesson for all of us to think about as we're doing the work that we're doing. As we all complain about getting tired or whatever, usually that's our own fault, right? We just need to open up this process and be more inclusive and build this thing together. So thank you all. Oh, wait, sorry. That was my students last weekend in Philadelphia. So my students now, these are public high school students and students from Lawrence Tech. They're in Philadelphia working with one of the top design studios in the world, which is what Kresge is funding, Groundswell, and we're working in the Quinder Cut. And that's them after their lesson of how to drive a Bobcat. So just one of the many examples of how this is working. That's Carlos. This is his 3rd semester with the class. He took it twice as a high school student. He's got a $26,000 a year scholarship at Lawrence Tech. He's taking it this semester as a college student. I think where's Ferdinand? I think he's in this picture. Yeah, Ferdinand's going to University of Michigan now. Oh God, somebody else is going to University of Detroit Mercy. They're all doing incredible things, and not that college is the only path. They're learning a lot of different paths, but they're learning that they have opportunities, and they're not being told anymore like their teachers, their high school teachers who went to the same school. They're not told that they can only be a firefighter, a cop, or a teacher. They're told they can be anything they want to be. So thank you. Sorry.